Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Welcome, everybody. As I was sort of mentioning tonight, we do call this Education Night at PCCC. That's more based on the fact that most of the time we do lectures, but I'm really hoping today that we can have a bi-directional conversation around what we're doing. Um, I unfortunately am unable to get my video to work. You can see that's my pretty face. However, I am struggling to get my video to work on my desktop. And in lieu of scrambling to get my other device out, I'm just going to go that way. So you'll have to just lean on my voice. If I'm asking for participation, I'm happy for you to just use your voice as well. Totally cool. But please engage. I want you to chime in at any point, and just kind of give me your thoughts. I am going to have at least 3 pit stops for you to talk. So, just give it a slide or two, and I'll probably be giving it a pause. But welcome. You can see we probably got our slide there earlier, or sorry, that invitation. Uh, this presentation is brought to you by Pharmacist Cannabis Coalition out of California, and we want to reintegrate pharmacists back into medical cannabis care model. In California, that is our primary focus, as we think we can achieve more. But obviously, we're interested in the entire world and the all pharmacists. And so I do allude to some other international things during this, and certainly we're down to help and talk with groups from other organizations. That is just our focus. You can become a member if you are a pharmacist for just $10 a month. I passed that, but that's down there. You get access to this talk and others that we've done, as well as you get to attend our meetings and all sorts of fun stuff there. That's me. Real quick, I went to Duquesne in Pittsburgh. I graduated in 2013. In 2020, I went back to school at the University of Maryland and got an MS in medical cannabis science and therapeutics. In 2022, I guess, graduated. I'm the chief science officer at the Canigma. I do a lot of work on the scientific editorial side, trying to educate consumers about the questions they're asking about cannabis. I've been featured in Leafly and High Times and a bunch of things. Professional experience, I'm a pediatric pharmacist by trade and training. By night, that is what I do. And by day, I make content for you folks on the internet, probably how you find yourself here. I do have a background in compounding pharmacy. It's kind of a passion of mine. And I teach at UCI, OCEMT, UCSD, and or at least I help Jill teach at UCSD. Yeah. So cool. Glad. Thanks for coming. I want to talk about the cannabis care model for pharmacists. And of course, there's a bunch of different models that exists, and there's a bunch of things in flux, think different regulations all around the world. But I kind of want us to think about where are we as a profession and where should we be? Are we doing what we can in medical cannabis? And if we're not, how do we get there? Sort of thought-provoking questions to start our talk. This is a little picture to show everyone the landscape. I know that we look at this and we're like, oh, we still got a long way. Can you believe Texas and shake our fist? I want to point out that in 1996, this map was all gray, all gray. Then California turned orange in this case, or sorry, it would have been green at that time. And it took another decade practically for anyone else to consider any sort of medical or legalization. And obviously in 2012, things really started to take off. By 2016, it started to look a little bit like this. And even to this day, we're still having updates. Georgia is still sort of battling things out. If you see anything on this map that is inaccurate, let me know. Ohio just turned orange. It was medical just until, a year ago or something like that. All sorts of changes happening, and you need to, I think, consider that, like everything that we say, talk about, and predict is all in flux. Everything that we think might be assured, say like Pennsylvania pharmacists in the dispensaries, we don't really know what that's going to look like if that state turns orange, and we'll talk more about that later. Um, Medical cannabis is gaining acceptance. It's pretty much irrefutable. You could look at the statistics, but they all speak for themselves. Cannabis is increasing in acceptance both medically and socially worldwide, with a few exceptions in maybe the Middle East or the Far East. There is really a growing interest in this plant, or growing re-interest in this plant might be more appropriate. In addition to that, in the United States, we have a bunch of different regulations all over the country. Everything is different. And to be honest, it's a little frustrating. trying to keep it all straight, even making this presentation and writing the article that I'm going to pimp out to you at the end of this. It's difficult to keep a strangle or an understanding of where we currently are and what's being proposed in the regulation. Even in California today, something could be different tomorrow on legality of, say, hemp products. Um, anyway, so there is a role for the pharmacist. There has been states and models where the pharmacist is integrated into patient care to improve safe and effective use of cannabis therapies. Should sound awfully familiar to any pharmacist in the room because that's kind of what we do all the time. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of models without pharmacists. That would be me over here, us over here in California. There is no pharmacist in the medical cannabis dispensary. In fact, there's not even really a medical cannabis dispensary. They're sort of dual licensed. And the benefit for being a medical patient ends up being primarily as it relates to taxes. Interestingly, even some of that isn't afforded. I learned this today from my colleagues and anyone who's interested. Costa Mesa was the most recent city to turn online cannabis sales in California, but they do not acknowledge the medical cannabis card, and you still have to pay your 7.5% local tax. Colorado is another example of this. Again, early adopter states, Canada, which is obviously not a US state, but they were early adopters and they did not integrate medical or pharmacists into the medical cannabis care model. In general, they rely on bud tenders with obviously variable training, some highly experienced, others lacking experience. There's no medical oversight. Once the doctor sort of gives the recommendation, it sort of falls into the lap of the consumer and the retailer, will say, bud tender. And obviously, this raises some potential safety concerns because we know that CBD, for example, can interact with certain narrow therapeutic window drugs. And frankly, this is my opinion a bit. Says generally in the ethos of the organization is that patients deserve support. Similar to any other medication, they deserve the rights afforded to them, such as privacy, access, affordability, etc. Pharmacist inclusive models, these do exist in Arkansas. If anyone has any experience there, there is a pharmacist that's basically assigned to the licensed operator, whether they have a dispensary or a grow. There's, every state's a little different. I don't know Arkansas that well, but definitely the retailer has to have an established relationship with a consultant pharmacist, essentially. And these pharmacists are obviously to help provide guidance and potentially consult with patients, write up adverse effects, etc. Mandated healthcare professionals in the dispensary. These are where pharmacists are in a dispensary model or a healthcare professional, perhaps a PA, a nurse practitioner, even a physical therapist, depending on the state. And obviously, I believe this is, and the group would believe this is an opportunity to optimize care, reduce harm. So we're in favor of this model. But I would point out that we're still back to the dispensary sort of feel, and for some reason, this isn't integrated into the model. Rather, we've brought the healthcare professional into the dispensary, which is not necessarily right or wrong, but that is sort of what's happening here, as opposed to other models, which we're going to jump to. I'm going to jump to the second large bullet point there, standard pharmacy sales, say in Italy or Netherlands, Denmark, a little bit in Portugal. Medical cannabis is sold through licensed pharmacies. So you actually just go to the pharmacy where you would pick up your typical prescription. Of course, their models are different in these countries as well. Keep that in mind. And they can sell you the cannabis product that meets the regulations in that state. So in Italy, it's federally provided. In the Netherlands, as you might imagine, it's pretty loose. And there's a bunch of different models. Now, in Georgia, the state, not the country, in Georgia, we have an interesting law where the current regulations say that low THC marijuana, which is capped at 5%, marijuana derived products, excuse me, basically oils, extracted oils, can be kept around or can be sold as long as they're under 5% THC. Now, this is complicated by the fact that the DEA doesn't like this. You had to be an independent retail pharmacy to apply for this or to I think apply. And the DEA put a kibosh to this, or at least put a stopgap. And right now we're sort of all at a standstill. No pharmacy in Georgia is currently selling any of this low THC cannabis oil. Shush. Excuse me. Louisiana is another kind of interesting model because they actually took the Board of Pharmacy and created a sub-licensure, a specialty medical marijuana license. And they have their right to sell THC medical cannabis. Now, what I'm not sure off the top of my head, actually, I'm pretty sure, is that these specialty licenses are not regular pharmacies. So it's a pharmacy license, but sort of the dispensary model or more so. So it's interesting what you've seen people come up with and kind of do. So I want to open this up again. I wish I had my video on. I apologize, but I want to open this up to you. I see a few pharmacists in the room. What's your model in your state? Is a pharmacist in the dispensary, and what has your oopsies, what has your experience been in this situation? Please, you don't even have to raise your hand. I'm just asking somebody to chime in. I know California is probably a lot of who we're pooling here, but I'm hoping somebody else can chime in.
California is terrible. That's my state's terrible. I'll start with that. We have no access. We have no healthcare professionals, and be due to the fact that's not obligated. So they don't want to spend money on pharmacists, sadly, but I wish they would.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we have some terrible aspects around integrating pharmacists, but I would actually argue that we have quite good access. You can have any healthcare professional, right? For any particular condition. And so patients who derive benefit from medical cannabis certainly do have access at least to the prescription, maybe not to the medicine, as there's still a lot of problems with laws, I will say, around where dispensaries can go. Anyone want to chime in? I know we got some people. Joe Falvo or Frank Falvo. I know you don't live in California. I know you're a pharmacist. What you got for me?
I'll speak up. My name's Kevin. I'm from Pennsylvania.
All right.
So it's a interesting model where pharmacists in the dispensary, the patients get certifications from the doc. Docs really are out of touch with what's going on with the medical market in Pennsylvania, so they usually just filter the patients to the dispensary pharmacist or the dispensary bud tender if the patients are comfortable, and we have those discussions right then and there. And that's honestly where I've been cutting my teeth the last few years, just patient one-on-one interactions, which has been really fulfilling. It's kind of what you've been going to pharmacy school for, so it's been great.
I love that. And the doctors, the physicians who are recommending, do they have to go under specialty training? Do they not want to follow up? Are they sort of relying on you guys to do follow up with your patients?
Yeah, they're pretty much relying on the dispensaries to follow up and have the interaction with the patients. They go through a pretty quick training required through Pennsylvania, and then they're set. So yeah, now it used to be one-on-one with the doctors in PA when it first started, but now it's even remote out-of-state doctors are creeping in to do the cheaper certifications. So it's becoming that more of a model of churning patients through.
Let's call it the former California medical model, where it was a bunch of pop docs essentially writing scripts.
Yeah.
Kevin, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Has the Board of Pharmacy gotten involved at all? And what is the role of the Board of Pharmacy with this? Have you had any pushback on that?
Board of Pharmacy doesn't have a ton of involvement. They kind of are pretty much hands off. It is run through the Department of Health. So that is a part of the Board of Pharmacy, or the Board of Pharmacy is part of the Department of Health in PA. But they're really, the Department of Health has taken the reins, and Board of Pharmacy has little input with it. So even things as easy as like getting the insurance coverage for pharmacists, and it's required for our pharmacy license. But that's kind of a caveat. There's nobody that's really providing that sort of insurance that covers our licenses. So there's a lot of loopholes and things that are that are probably going on in all the different states. But because there is that distance with the Board of Pharmacy, there's just a lot of murkiness, let's say.
Interesting. Yeah, I fear that Pennsylvania is going to cut the pharmacist out. I was educated in Pennsylvania,
Sure.
so it's where I grew up, and I am fearful that the MSOs who have gobbled up the majority of those licenses are not going to find value unless, of course, we protect patients' rights and access to healthcare professionals that are trained and experts. And that's going to take, well, I'm going to get to that part of the talk. Uh, anyone
That's
else?
why I'm
I
on.
would say that.
That's why I'm on.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that. Anyone else? I would love one more person to chime in with what's
Cody,
happening in your
there
state.
was a there was actually a question for you.
Oh, perfect.
It says, are you able to combine cannabis compounds with other molecules in California?
No. I mean, first of all, you can, right? You can with your hemp license, or you could with a marijuana license, you can do that. But pharmacists are not allowed to touch these compounds, or have, CBD in your pharmacy. You can actually get nabbed for that. I've got a friend who got in quite a bit of trouble for compounding with CBD, even in the premises of his pharmacy, even though he wasn't selling it out of the pharmacy. Um, so no, I would say there's a pretty hands-off position at least in the state of California from the Board of Pharmacy in these matters. One more example would be, we have a friend who owns a pharmacy, a pharmacist in Huntington Beach. She had gotten her pharmacy license legally and procured it, was doing no prescription work, but was doing patient-specific hemp compounding, essentially. And the Board of Pharmacy asked her to rescind her license. Um, yeah, but not in like a mean way. They just said like you can't you can't do no prescriptions as a pharmacy. You can't be open as a pharmacy and not do that. They didn't say she couldn't be compounding with hemp because there's already rules against that. So like it was kind of implicit. So those are my two firsthand experiences. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that people have dabbled in this space and generally been told to stop. Cool. I'll move on. Thank you for your input. Kevin, you don't have to talk again, but someone else is.
Wait, Cassandra, I think Cassandra had something to say.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I was going in and out, but yeah, I'm down here in Georgia. Everything you said is what's going on down here. So the independent pharmacies have not started selling again. I was hoping to get an opportunity because I am a patient down here just to see how their setups and stuff are going, but I never got that opportunity before the DEA letter came. So, like you said, the model is pretty much the same. I believe they were supposed to mix it in with the legend drugs as well, just like the other controls.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty much at a standstill as far as dispensing low THC oil in the independent pharmacies here in Georgia.
I love that we have people from all over the country. Thank you for that update. Anything like boots on the ground? Like, is there going to be movement or everything's stagnant?
It's stagnant. So the way that the structure is for the low THC oil companies that are manufacturing and dispensing is it's pretty much you manufacture and dispense. So we have two major manufacturers, which is I believe it's Botanical Medicines, which is controlled by medical providers. So this is actually doctors growing and dispensing this one, and they're one of the larger operators. So they have more of a provider model, but they do not have pharmacists in their dispensaries currently. And then True Leave is here. No, they don't have any pharmacists in there. And then you have Fine Fettle, which is one of the smaller operators that just started opening up dispensaries here in Georgia. And they do not have pharmacists in their dispensaries either. So we're, again, only doing low THC oil, so 5% cap. And we haven't seen any movement, nothing,
Nothing
not
else.
even certain edibles, like they can't even make, like they're only doing lozenges, capsules. They can do tinctures, but no gummies. I think there's even a rule in there about gummies. So yeah, really, really specific about what they're able to do here in Georgia, but definitely nothing smokable. No.
Hmm. I put it in tea. What are you talking about? I don't smoke it. uh, anyway, I think that's great feedback. I hope that, I think that either model can work. You saw in the last slides, they have both. Like there's some where we've taken the healthcare professional and dropped them in the sort of cannabis space. And then there's also alternative models, I'm not saying either one's better, where we bring the patient into the pharmacy to have them get their cannabis medicine. You could probably make an argument the second one's better, but I'm obviously biased.
Cody,
But
we did
yeah,
have feedback also from Illinois and from Louisiana as well.
go ahead. Read it out.
Sure. So Illinois does not have pharmacists in our dispensaries. Consumers get little to no training from bud tenders. So that's from Illinois. So that's sounds like a similar model to California. And then in Louisiana, the dispensaries are referred to as pharmacies. So only 10 state licenses owned and operated by pharmacists. A pharmacist is required to conduct evaluations on site, and they determine the route, the dosage, etc. The medical provider only writes a recommendation, refers to the pharmacy. Pharmacist handles from there. I like that model. Yay, yay, Ivy. I like your model.
Who issues that license in Louisiana?
That's the Board of Pharmacy. I knew that part.
It
But the
is?
question is can that pharmacy do any other pharmacy work? Or is it so specialty that they only have that license and they don't do regular prescriptions?
Ivy, you can throw it on the chat.
I know during COVID, they were allowed, I think, to, add on other medications. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that part stopped when the COVID emergency ended.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
So not any, you don't think so? This is primarily functioning as a dispensary. And then Ivory, if you could, what are the caps? Like what are the limits on the purchases?
I don't know that off the top of my head, only because it has changed so much. I don't remember the actual the latest caps. I know the last change that I can remember, but this is not related to the caps, is when they oh god, I've lost my train of thought. What was the last change? As far as the caps, I don't remember the caps. Oh, I was going to say the last change that I remember, or the big change that I remember, was that we had at first like a limited, like 10 diagnoses. That pretty much went away, and then the providers is pretty much, it's at the discretion of the provider. Anything that they feel is a debilitating condition, they write for, and then after that. But as far as the caps, I'm not familiar with that, because I know it's been a lot going on with that, so I don't know the latest.
Still though, Ivory, I mean, I gotta say, that sounds like trending in the direction that I would love to see, in more states.
Well, on y'all's last call that you guys had, and I can't remember that call, I think it was like during the time you guys were getting ready to I think y'all were getting ready to submit your position paper for the DEA for the public comments, and you guys had a Zoom call at that time, and pretty much the model, what you guys were saying then, as you was talking about what pharmacists will be able to do or already have the capacity to do for Schedule 3. I was like, I think Louisiana model is pretty much going to meet that standard. Just listening to what you guys were saying, as far as if they go to Scheduling 3 and if nothing changes, how it has to be pretty much handled through the pharmacy or the pharmacist, dispensed by the pharmacist. It looks like Louisiana model is on task for that, but I don't know. That's why I'm here trying to learn.
I think you're right for sure. I think it's set up for that almost.
Mm-hmm.
I support Louisiana.
Oh, Lord.
Well, it's not every day that Louisiana is in the top 5, but it sounds like they're leading the way in medical cannabis, at least from a pharmacist perspective. So I think that's pretty cool. And I really appreciate everyone for your engagement. I'm gonna move on to some stuff that you probably already know, and we'll just keep chit-chatting about what's going on. But I think that these are the challenges. I think that just as I alluded to with multi-state operators having a big chunk of Pennsylvania sort of in their asset holdings, that there's huge cost considerations for them. They do not want to pay us $120,000 to $150,000 a year. They don't. We're expensive. We also want the best thing for our patients, right? Not the most sales for our corporate boss, and that just sort of ethical dilemma that doesn't really exist when you've got pharmacists leading pharmacies, or exists less. Certainly, there are examples where that greed exists, but I think that's very true, and especially as U.S. cannabis markets are downtrending. See next slide. There's a real challenge ahead of us convincing people that we are worth our salt. Current pharmacy education often lacks comprehensive training on medical cannabis. Pharmacists are underprepared. I cannot express this enough. It's a problem. I do think this gap is closing. I don't think it's closing fast enough, but we do have some examples, like Dr. Simonian here to my side on the at least on the video that I'm looking at. She has started a program at UCSD. She 2-credit elective for pharmacists and medical students. She brought that program to UCI, where we co-chair a class there. I know that Dr. Carrie Franson over here on the call has also started a class. We recently did a lecture as the nonprofit to Toro students. We're getting out there, and I bet if I had everyone turn on their mics, you could all probably cite one thing that you've done locally. So tides are changing, but there's huge educational gaps that remain to be filled. And then federal versus state regulations, right? Schedule 3, Schedule 1, it's not scheduled in this state. It's still Schedule 1 in this state. It's Schedule 2 in that state. Believe it or not, there's these big conflicts between state and federal law, and it has created sort of a cluster, both problematic from a legislative, a regulatory, as well as I would even say, yeah, just like progress, a lot of bumps in the road for this industry because of this. Just a little bit of proof of what I said as medical cannabis goes down. Here's an infographic from a study evaluating the 7 years from 2013 to 2020. There was a lot of states coming online that turned on a program. Now, what you can see in number 1, the top of our screen here is adult use and medical use. You can see states that have both adult use and medical use, which changed from medical only to adult use after the dark square around the year. You can see that after adult use passes in each state, we get an overall reduction in per capita medical marijuana patients. Washington, D.C. is kind of an anomaly because they didn't have a true medical market that was operating in a real capacity. They just had marijuana trading, just trade your herb. Bartering, excuse me. Anyway, so number 2 down here in the second half of this infographic, you can see states that only kept their medical laws. Arizona is going to be an interesting example. I'd love to see them repeat this today, 4 years later. Show me what happened with Arizona. My hunch is that it flatlined and went down just like everyone else. New Mexico is a really interesting example. You can see that there's a big adoption of marijuana use in New Mexico. Not really a surprise given their demographics is highly Hispanic and just in general. For all the way going back to the LaGuardia report in 1940 in the US, African Americans and Hispanic Americans smoke more marijuana than Caucasians. Caucasians are catching up statistically. And yeah, you can just basically see that medical states here at the bottom did not have any of these decreases over the same general time period from 2013 to 2020. We basically see no decrease in use except for maybe this little squiggle on Rhode Island, as opposed to all the states that legalized adult use, there was a change. Now, I just want to talk about this for a second. Oh, wait, yeah, I'll talk about this graph for a second, then we'll go to our question. I recognize that not every person who goes to a cannabis doctor to get a prescription and goes to a medical dispensary is truly I don't want to say truly a medical patient, they very much are, but are not in need of the services provided through that current medical market. And so if the patient is self-sufficient, they've already figured out how marijuana helps them and they don't really need a pharmacist, then they're going to immediately back out in states where there's a lot of burdens. I believe in states where you can keep those burdens lower, you'll see less de-adoption. But it shows that we have challenges ahead of us in proving our value and showing our worth. And I want to know what you think. What challenges have you guys encountered? I know Kevin talked about in Pennsylvania. I'd love to hear if he's run into any of these penny pinching or, corner cutting, that sort of thing that can come up when push comes to shove, hour cutting, etc. So I want to open this up to the floor. Somebody talk other than me.
Well, I feel like you called me out a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, some of the big MSOs, I used to work for a company that was, a mom and pop run, and then a big MSO took that over. And their goal was to, put pharmacists instead of in the stores, being part of inventory, being part of the team, ringing out registers, like just being on the floor, taking them away to just remote cert checks and there's verify restrictions. So it's like taking the pharmacist out, unfortunately. And then they're even further than that, doing one pharmacist who just looks over 3 or 6 locations instead of 1-to-1 ratio. So it's really taking the pharmacist out of the dispensaries. But Pennsylvania's done a couple at least nice things to make access easier for patients. They do for yearly renewals. They'll waive the $50 fee for anyone who has a medical assistance or disability. And then they're starting to do monthly reimbursement for patients who are on PACE, which is a Pennsylvania assistance program. If you're on Social Security or disability, you get $50 in your account, and then they'll come into the dispensary, and we get to almost adjudicate that claim and reduce their cost at the register. So that's at least something that's cool.
Cool.
And
yeah,
that's
I'm impressed.
I am hopeful that with the insurance billing, that is an avenue where now I'm starting to teach the bud tenders, like, hey, this is something that could be happening if we're medical. This is another aspect. So hopefully that's something that with Schedule 3, you're down the line, more access to insurance billing and things like that, I think can keep our role. I think Alan had mentioned that in the chat. So kudos.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And I think, yeah, that does sound like what I was expecting. I think it's horrible to take the pharmacist to have cover 6 pharmacies, right? As if that was your value add task, checking a database to make sure that a patient, didn't fail or whatever the restrictions are still certified. That's just not, we know, I think all the pharmacists here and hopefully our patients know that we can do more for them than that. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, I think getting us in the conversation is one of the challenges we have and that we need to be acutely aware of and advocating for. The change is upon us. If it goes Schedule 3, which it very well could, we've got like a bigger challenge now, right? That we're going to have to figure it all out. We're going to have to see where it fits in. We're going to have special new SOPs and all the things to handle it, and more hospitals will start to accept it, just like we're seeing here with California. There's going to be a lot of work for pharmacists. So the more ahead of it we can get, the more on top of our knowledge base and become sort of experts in our own field, our own space, our own states, then I believe that we are still the best professional to lead this charge.
Cody,
Those opportunities. Go ahead.
Sorry, we had not in the chat, but there's been lots of questions about when the government has to make the decision. So I figured I'd send that question to you just so people know.
As I understand it, the government has to respond to all the comments, and they're going to do that as in a timely manner, but there is no timeline.
Exactly.
And then once they do that, they have like 30 or 60 days to decide whether they agree or disagree. They don't necessarily have to agree to the Schedule 3 proposal. I expect legal challenges in both directions if they legalize it, Schedule 3, or if they don't. Um, I know there's a big press in Washington, or at least there was a few weeks ago, and I'll let you figure out why, that if there was a change in the power structure in Washington, that the Schedule 3 thing could go out of the window. And so there was a real rush, at least a couple weeks ago, when I talked to stakeholders to get this cannabis reform passed and get a response. So, I mean, the executive branch technically oversees the DEA. And so they do have the power to push. I just don't know to what capacity and to what end. And how urgent it is for them. If this is something they really need to occur pre-election, or if now they're feeling a little bit more like they can take their time to appeal to their stakeholders. So if you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said pre-election. I don't know if I'm convinced of that anymore. Again, my opinion, by the way. Not not science-based. Okay, pharmacists. We have to create value. We have to show it and we have to wear it proudly. We got to find a way to publish it. We got to find a way to capture it. We got to find a way to make shirts that say pharmacists make cannabis better. I don't know what we have to do, but we need to show value and tell people about it. There are publications increasingly in that space. I think there's opportunities to do more. We got to get into the conversations and start collaborating with our doctor and nurse friends who are trying to do research in nursing homes and trying to do, these sort of controlled or not real world studies, let's say. Educational change, I've already expressed this, but we need pharmacists to be, integrated into or integrating cannabis focused education into their both didactic training in school and then what they're doing in the real world after they've graduated. I think that there's an opportunity for both, and it wouldn't take that much effort. And there's huge opportunities for you folks who are on this call in educating pharmacists and other healthcare professionals about these topics, because that's where education is done in the trenches, so to speak, in these small groups, 30 to 50 people at a time, teaching them about the basics. Also know, as you probably already picked up, these laws evolve. Pharmacists can have, like a huge impact on what we expect to do, but we have to be in that policy evolution. We have to be engaging in those conversations and advocating for our profession as a value add in this situation. And with the appropriate training, we can be there. So for me, these are the opportunities is to really find a way to show our value. I don't 100% have an answer, but again, documenting what we're doing, educating at every chance we get, not just sort of playing that sort of back on our heels in the pharmacy role that we're way too well known for doing. Educational change, like I said, this is happening, but you can do this too. You could talk to your alma mater. You can do a CE. It's now pretty acceptable. Even these state and local or national organizations are picking up on the idea that we can do these CEs, and we need to be involved in the policymaking. So, anybody else know of any opportunities that we need to be capitalizing on? And then I will close out with sort of, if you want to read more about this. Oh, look, I mistyped opportunities. Jill, I know you already saw that. Your eyes are like exploding out of your video. You're like, oh, I did it again. Now I'm all nervous about any of the other words.
It's all good, Cody.
Certainly not my strong suit, the types. Anyway, anyone else who could think of an opportunity? Where do we need pharmacists? Where
This is
it kind of
Derek.
covered it properly. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. Great discussion. I wanted to find out if there's any strategizing at PCCC on submitting materials to the California State Board of Pharmacy on the sunset review process, which is, I believe, slated for the first quarter of 2025. So are you going to introduce any proposals at that venue?
It's a great question, Gary. I'm going to let Jill answer it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Gary, would you just repeat that question? The sunset review for what?
The California State Board of Pharmacy is having a sunset review process. This last one was 4 or 5 years ago. It's where they you probably understand what the sunset review does, but it's an opportunity for injecting some of your goals into the discussion for even potential legislative results. So the input to the sunset committee is coming up soon. They have a I think a schedule that they want to get it at least almost to completion before the end of March 2025. So are you PCCC involved in preparing any materials to submit?
We haven't prepared anything specifically for that. I'm sure you're well aware. I know you're well aware that we have been drafting language for the CDPH Title 22 revisions. So we've submitted that to CSHP, and that's, that's long and involved, but we are trying to change at least that language. And in the I'm also part, as you are, the legislative committee of CSHP. So we are going to try to draft some legislation to incorporate pharmacists into this cannabis space. Depending on this rescheduling, of course, but I do have some people who are backing us to draft some sort of legislation, and we got to interact with our local legislators to get some support. So that's the next step with that next committee. But I will look into the Board of Pharmacy. We've spoken with the Board of Pharmacy, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of communication that way, but I will definitely look into that and see what we can provide for that. Maybe you can help me out.
Yeah, great, Jill. I will look into starting a conversation between the office and PCCC players to get their heads together and see what kind of collaborations we can put together.
Yeah, absolutely. We're 100% interested in collaborating with you and with the Board of Pharmacy, for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely in our goals list. We just haven't really found the right way. It sounds like you have a pretty nifty or unique proposal. I don't know anything about sunsetting, but I think that we should further the conversation, because I think that's absolutely within our goals, is to get the Board of Pharmacy to take a stance, or at least a hopefully more friendly stance. But they basically have ignored the fact that this plant exists and that it's used as medicine around the state. So engaging them in any way seems positive.
Yeah, I'll contact you about that so that we can get a better feel for that.
Terrific. Thank you so much for putting this program together.
Oh yeah, thanks. Anyone else think there's another place where pharmacists, either in California or their own state, any place where there was an opportunity and it kind of slipped past? Is there anything we could do to protect it, to do better in the future? Failures essentially.
I have an idea, really, that I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and we're definitely seeing a space between the pharmacists, the doctors, and what the patient needs here. And that's really coming from the patient consultation services that you could provide, almost like a, even more of a side hustle kind of thing, providing those individualized consultations directly to the patients that are interested in starting a protocol. And I think it's just essential to have a pharmacist involved so they understand what other medications the patient is on, and all those sorts of things. But I think that that is an area, especially here in Atlanta, where there's so much gray area happening, and again with the legislation just up in the air, it's something that we can kind of take advantage of, that gray area, and capture it while we have it, sort of thing. But I think that's important to have the pharmacists involved.
I'm glad you think that, Rebecca, and also thanks for joining. My thought is this pharmacist a member of a care team, or would this be like a pharmacist driven program, or are you trying like saying like a care team that would provide like help these new medical patients?
I'm seeing that the physicians themselves are interested in providing, this education to the patients, but don't want to get involved. Something that they want to send their patients to someone who is educated and, can serve their patients well. And there's not a lot of people who are representing that field right now, like at least here in Atlanta, of just saying like, I'm a medical professional, I have the education, I'm confident in, helping walk your patient through a protocol and starting something. So I think it takes the responsibility and kind of the fear off of the physicians. And also, you can charge a certain, a certain amount for the patient to be directly to you, so you can have something going where you can be a part of the medical cannabis industry in your own way without having to kind of go through the red tape.
Have a license and all that, yeah.
Right.
And help people. I think what you find
Give
is
me that. Hey, it's Cassandra. I'm that person, Rebecca.
Mhm.
Yes, perfect.
In Georgia. Yeah. Definitely send me your information. I'll put mine in the chat. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that
Thank
idea,
you.
Rebecca. As you know, like this model hasn't really panned out in very many states. I know that people were trying in Massachusetts and Minnesota. Pharmacists haven't really nailed this model yet, and like how to charge, because there is no reimbursement, yada yada. And I'm sure that Cassandra would definitely resonate with this. But I think we are interested in that, and it kind of maybe was what my leading question is. It kind of takes a team, because a pharmacist is expensive and busy, kind of like one of those challenges that we need to figure out. So I think really thinking outside of the box on how you could do both is super important. And I love the idea of having pharmacists even recerting. I think they were talking about that in Pennsylvania, is that they were going to have the pharmacist be the recertification professional. There's another state that's doing something similar. Can't remember right now, but yeah, super cool stuff. I'm just going to close out my presentation here real quick. I think in the future that pharmacists, there's opportunities to do the dispensing and the counseling. We know that pharmacists can add value here, particularly with complex patients. In my humble opinion, the average pharmacist does not need my services. But I know that there are so many people with complex chronic disease states that are currently not taking their medicine. Their medicine's not working. They're dealing with side effects, and I believe the cannabis could help them. So if we add value, those people will come back to us. And in my opinion, we should avoid being gatekeepers. The mandatory pharmacist checking the certification, that feels gatekeepy to me. I'd rather have that pharmacist in the dispensary, which I love, but like talking to the patients and engaging with them and learning the products and leading the team. Just an example of gatekeeping, and certainly not pointing any fingers at our friends in Pennsylvania, more so the laws. The practice is evolving as the policy is. Who knows? We don't know where this is going. You could literally help steer it. That's how nascent and how small this group and change is that's happening. So the more you get involved, the more you get out there, the more you engage with professional groups like PCC or ISCPH or SCC, whatever group resonates with you, the more likely you are to drive these changes. And then again, educational reforms, I alluded to this, they need CEs. Drugs like marijuana are interesting. People will come and learn about it. You just got to build it. People will come, or people will watch it later, because cannabis and ecstasy and these things, they're fun. They make like learning about drugs more fun. I don't know how else to say it. So I think that those are all cool things. Also, if you're interested in learning more about basically what I talked about today, we did write an article for Pharmacy Times. It was in a version of Pharmacy Times. I think it's the Health Systems edition. And yeah, check it out. Follow the link. I put the QR code right there. I guess I led the writing of it, but it is penned under the PCCC because we did contribute as a group. Lastly, thank you. And if you want to join our group, there's the website. If you want to see a version of this or any of our previous talks, if you join, you can do that. Paula, anyone else got anything to say?
Actually, we have a discount for the membership. So it's actually $50 for the year, and that gets all past recordings that we've ever posted on the website for PCC.
Oh, wow.
So $50 for the entire year. So you get a discount. And obviously, if you're a student, you just have to send in documentation that you're a current student, and your first year with PCC will be only $10. So we'd love you guys to join. We'd love you guys to watch our stuff and to make sure to, share info and invite people to come to these meetings, because really we just want to spread info. And you can get us, I put our website in the chat a couple times. It's info@pcccrx.org. Oh, you don't have to do anything, Anne. You just go onto the website and you'll see that you can just click and it'll be $50 for the year. So that's what what we have going right now. So please contact us if you'd like us to present at your organization, if you would like us to help in any way, if you'd like us to speak, or if you'd like us to collaborate with you, please contact us again at info@pcccrx.org, and we'd be happy to chat with you. We will be having another presentation at the end of or in the middle of November. That presentation will be led by actually myself and Dr. Paul Lotham, and we will be discussing cannabis for senior care for older adults. So that will be a great one, and we really are thrilled you guys all came, and we just really appreciate the support. So please contact us, and if there's any suggestions for upcoming ideas of what you would like to hear about, please let us know, because we really would love to present information that people are looking for.
Thanks, Cody, for taking the lead, and thanks, Leah, for organizing, being the host.
You're so welcome.
It was all Cody.
Everyone enjoyed and found it valuable. Again, I didn't have any huge insights to share today. I just felt like it was a valuable conversation to be had. And yeah, I hope that everyone enjoyed it. Looks like they did. It makes me happy.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. You're so welcome. We'll kind of hang around as a group or whatever towards the end, but if then no one has any further questions, it's a class dismissed situation. It's 6:30, right basically on the nose. We'll get you out 2 minutes early before the bell rings.
Cody, I'm so proud of you. You stuck it right on point.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to get pretty good at this. And I was really prepared for this one, right, Jill?
You were like very prepared.
And feel free to unmute yourselves. You guys are more than welcome to just unmute and ask questions and chat. I'm not going to be checking the chat anymore just because the call's over. So please just feel free to unmute and speak up.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, everybody who came. Seriously, we gotta work together.
Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you. We'll talk soon, Gary.
See y'all. Good night, y'all.
Oh, hi. My name's Maya. I came a little late, so I was wondering if there's any way that we can watch the recording of this, or how would we be able to have access to it?
Sure, we mentioned so all the meetings are free when they're live, and then members can access them anytime. We have
Okay.
the pharmacist or general membership. It's $50 for the whole year right now. I was just informed by our treasurer, Dr. Leia. And it's also just $10 if you're a student. I'm not sure what your status is. So
Okay.
yeah, if you'd like to access it, and actually, if it's of interest to you, we've also done something like 6 or 8 other talks that are on the website that you would gain access to as well.
Okay, perfect. I was putting in the chat a while ago because I'm part of a nonprofit called This Is Jane Project, and we have like a happy healing hour every month, and it would be amazing. Like I exchanged info with Dr. Leah Johnson. If you guys can like do a talk or do something like an event for us, I can link you up with whoever to get that going if you guys are interested.
That sounds great. You exchanged info with, or yeah, Maya, go ahead and email us at info@PCCRX, and then Leia can loop me in.
Okay.
She usually monitors that email. But yeah,
Okay.
I think we could put something together. We would just need to hear a little bit more about the audience and what you want to hear about. And we would probably
Uh-huh.
just do it a couple of us rather than bring most of the board up. We would
Of
just do one or
course.
two of us. Yeah.
Okay. That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
really
Thanks, Maya.
appreciate. Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Look forward to it. All right. Anything else, y'all? We going home? Okay. I'm going home. I appreciate you all. We'll talk soon, everybody.
Thanks, Cody.
Mhm.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Cody. Bye, everyone.
Nice work.